Hey guys, it's Bella and welcome back to another book talk. Today I'm going to be talking about Unravel Me, the second book in the Shatter Me series. Now I also did a book talk on Shatter Me. The link to that will be in the description and I'll probably put a card somewhere on the screen. But I did end up really liking Shatter Me. I gave it 4 stars and I also reviewed the novella Destroy Me in the same video. Today I'm going to be talking about Unravel Me and Fracture Me, which is Adam's novella that takes place after and somewhat during Unravel Me. I'm going to be doing a non-spoilery part where I just share like my general thoughts about the book and then I'll do more specific thoughts. So I did read this book all in one day. It was that good. So if my thoughts aren't as in-depth as they were in the Shatter Me video, just because like I kind of have trouble remembering everything that happened when I read stuff all in one day. They kind of just like blend together, and because I read Ignite Me pretty close after, it kind of blends together. But I will try my best to give as many reactions to things as possible and talk about everything that I liked and stuff that I didn't. Guys, I loved this book. It was so good. Like, so good, obviously, because I read it all in one day. I did give it 5 out of 5 stars. I liked it a lot better than Shatter Me, and it was just so good. It was a roller coaster of emotions because Juliette's emotions are kind of a roller coaster in this book, and I enjoyed every second of it. I loved her character development and watching her grow. I also loved seeing Warner's character development and just watching their interactions and everything. And of course, I loved Kenji, the iconic best friend. Like, honestly, we wouldn't be where we are today without him. Like, Juliette would have a lot more problems and a lot more issues processing trauma without him. There were so many plot twists in this book, and like they were all written really well. They all made sense and blew me away. Like, I didn't see any of them coming, even though I probably should have. So yes, in conclusion, go read this book, go read Shatter Me, read this series, like it is so good, and then come back to this video once you have to hear my thoughts on Unravel Me. But if you don't care about spoilers, then keep watching because I'm gonna go into a lot more depth about this book. So I thought that a lot of the issues that I had with Shatter Me, like the pacing problems and stuff, were fixed in this book. I definitely like the pacing a lot more. It still went really fast, but nothing really felt rushed. Everything felt normal and developed, which was good. So let's first talk about Juliette. So I loved her even more in this book. I loved seeing her powers, seeing her grow, and I loved all her training and just, I don't know, watching her overcome some of her trauma. It was really difficult to read, but also so rewarding. But Castle, I think that's how you pronounce his name, but he frustrated me so much in this book because at the beginning of this book, he was talking to her and he was like talking to her about how she's not putting any effort in and how she's not interacting with anyone. And it made me so mad because like she's been through some serious trauma when it comes to interacting with people, and she's just not going to overcome that in one day. Like, she needs some time to adjust to being able to have social interactions again. And he also just stuck her in a room and like expected her to know how to use her powers. Like, he's just like, oh yeah, you just have to tap in and like learn to control it. But she's had to force down her powers and her entire personality for like her whole entire life just to seem non-threatening. So it's gonna take more than a few days sitting in a room to like figure it out. Thank God for Kenji though, because he really helped her get back on her feet. He helped her like connect with people in the facility. He helped her with her powers. He was really the reason why she was able to get back on her feet again, and if no one had reached out to her like how he did, then she wouldn't be where she is by the end of the book. Kenji really shone in this book. Like, I just loved learning so much more about him, because in the first book he kind of just seemed like your traditional douche who happens to have some depth to him, but in this book he really showed his true character and how responsible he is on the inside, but how he uses his humor to like try and conceal all of his trauma and try and help cheer other people up when they're going through rough times. And I have a few friends like that that really use their humor the way he does, and so it really hurt to see him go through everything that he goes through in this book and to see him break down and not be able to be strong anymore. I suppose it's time we talked about Adam. Now, I don't care about Adam whatsoever. In this book, I just don't care about Adam. That's the thing, I'm like completely indifferent to him. I don't care about the drama they had at the beginning of this book, and I'm really glad this book did not make that its central focus, because I would have been so bored and so done. I'm really glad this book focused a lot on Juliette and like her as a person instead of her relationships, and of course they focused on her relationships somewhat because that is part of who she is, but it wasn't the central focus. It wasn't what kept the plot going. It wasn't any of those things. It was kind of just, you know, part of the story naturally. And of course, things got a lot more interesting when Warner steps into the picture. So basically, when they go to confront his dad, Warner's dad, because he has two of their men, Juliette has to go inside and like confront him, and eventually Juliette shoots Warner's dad in the legs, which, I mean, queen, like, we stan. That moment was so good. I loved it. And then they kidnap Warner to try and use him as blackmail, even though that would never work because they know how horrible his dad is, so how could they think that he would have human decency? Because he doesn't. But when Adam goes into the house where Anderson is, Warner's dad, he looks at him and he's like, that's my dad. That's my dad who's supposed to be dead. And my heart just drops, and immediately the pieces come together because both Warner and Adam can touch Juliette. And there were so many theories that I had last book. Like, I remember Adam was talking about how he was somehow immune to like the radiation that was in the secret spot he found, and I was thinking maybe like there's people with this really rare gene, or like people who get exposed to the type of radiation can have immunity to her powers to some extent because, you know, maybe her powers can't come from radiation. I don't know. My brain was in all sorts of places, but one of the places it was not was thinking that Adam and Warner are brothers, which makes perfect sense because they both can touch Juliette and they both have these powers, which is the reason why they can touch Juliette. And first of all, figuring out that Adam has a power made a lot of sense. It made much more sense than any of my theories. And Warner's power is so interesting because not only can he be able to touch Juliette, the reason why is he can take her power and use it as his own. And he could also sense other people's emotions to some extent, which is really, really interesting, and it explains a lot. It explains how much trauma he's been through because, like, he could quite literally feel the hatred of everyone around him. He could feel how much people hated him just for being in the position he was, which has got to take a huge toll on a 17-year-old or however old he was when he took the position. I cannot wait to see the result of that conclusion going down in the next book because Warner still does not know, and they hate each other, so it's going to be very interesting. It also is interesting to hear how they turned out similar and how they turned out different by being raised by the same person, but also they weren't raised the same whatsoever. Like, they were both raised by a monster, but Adam was raised where he was being constantly abused and degraded by his dad. Warner, while he was still being abused and degraded, he was also being groomed, like severely groomed, to be in a position he didn't want to be a person he didn't want to be, to show no emotions, to do all of these things. And Adam just never had to go through that because he wasn't in the position that Warner was in. So yeah, they were both still raised differently, even though they were both raised by the same person. But oh my god, Warner in this book, like, I loved seeing Warner, and I loved seeing him and Juliette. He's just such an interesting character. He has so much depth and backstory and so much humanity, like both the good and the bad sides. The scene where Juliette sees his scars, so heartbreaking. Like, oh my god. And when he shows her his tattoos, I love his tattoos, by the way. Like, one of his tattoos is one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's a Shakespeare quote, and I just need to read it because I love it so much. Hell is empty and all of the devils are here. I just love that quote so much because it really is true. You know, what is hell if not human suffering on earth? I mean, that's basically what the quote means. So I thought that was really cool. I really liked that tattoo. I loved just seeing her and Warner have these conversations when, you know, she's trying to hate him and think all these things about him, but she can't because he's not the person that she thinks he is. And, you know, that's revealed during their conversations. And I just love all their talks about different things, and it was so cute. That's the one thing that they really developed that her and Adam never really had. Like, they actually have conversations about things. They figure stuff out about each other, you know. They tell stories, they ask questions. And even if was originally under the guise of interrogation, it really wasn't at all by the end of this book. Like, they genuinely got to know each other. And her and Adam just never had genuine conversations that often. Like, of course, they'd be talking about whatever was happening in the plot, but when it comes to real, in-depth conversations about each other and who they were as people and their experiences, they had like two just to cover the baseline. Oh, we're both traumatized kind of stuff. And their relationship seemed to more centralize around physical touch, which makes complete sense because Adam never really had physical touch that wasn't aggressive besides his younger brother, and Juliette never had physical touch whatsoever. She didn't get to experience that at all. So when someone showed that kindness to her, of course she's going to have that relationship really center around it because she doesn't know how to have any other relationships. She just doesn't. And that's part of the reason why I think their relationship didn't work out, besides the whole Adam is drained of his power when he touches Juliette thing. Because, I mean, I think that they're probably going to go more in depth into that because their breakup wasn't a clean break. It wasn't at all. It was more of a, we both love each other, but this relationship isn't going to work out kind of thing. And we all know that never ends there, especially in YA books. And of course, you know, we gotta have the drama in the next book between him and Warner. I just know what's gonna happen. Warner's speech about being her friend, like being the best friend that she falls in love with, and like all those other things was amazing. It was so cute. I loved it so much. I actually saw that quote. I mean, it was one of the things that convinced me to read the Shatter Me series because I saw it on someone's Instagram story, and I was like, yes, I want that. I want to read that. And it was so good. It was so good. It wasn't at all in the context I thought it was going to be in, but I still loved it. Okay, last thing is the ending was, oh my god, my heart was racing that whole time. When she got shot in the chest by Anderson, my heart dropped. I mean, I knew she wasn't going to die, but I had no idea what was going to happen. You know, when you're reading books and bad things happen to the main character, you know they're not gonna die, but it's still like that, oh my god kind of feeling, you know? And when Warner saved her, like helped save her with the twins, oh, that was such a good scene. It was such a good scene seeing him like so desperate and vulnerable like that, since we hadn't really seen him like that much before, except like in brief glimpses, like when he was with the dog and that kind of thing. So yeah, that scene was so good. And then the very end, when she was like, I'm ready to fight, I'm so excited to see her in the next book and to see her just kick ass. Like, I am so excited to see that side of Juliette that's been coming out this whole book, and we're finally gonna get to see it in the next book. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to make it kind of brief because I don't have any thoughts on it, but I read the novella Fracture Me, as I said earlier in the video. It's by Adam's perspective during the whole battle scene at the end of Unravel Me and like right after it. And honestly, it wasn't great. It wasn't really memorable. There wasn't much to it besides Adam just being a jerk in his brain. Like, he belittled Juliette so much during that book. It made me go from being neutral to Adam to not liking Adam. He literally talked about how incompetent Juliette is, how like they can't trust her to do things right, like all of these things. He doesn't believe in her at all. And the contrast to that is that Warner believes in her so much. He believes in her ability to use her powers in all of these things. And Adam just doesn't believe in her whatsoever. And it made me mad. The only thing that I liked about that was seeing Adam's reaction to James almost dying, because he thought that he died in a bombing thing that would take place right after Unravel Me, but obviously James didn't die. Thank God, because I would have cried so hard. Yeah, so this novella was kind of pointless. The only thing we learned was that Adam is kind of a jerk, and that the reestablishment basically killed off most of the people with powers in Omega Point, and we would have learned both of those things in the next book anyways. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars just because I didn't really enjoy reading it, because I don't like Adam and there was really no point to it. But of course I did like the James stuff, and you know, I always like the writing for the Shatter Me series. I love the writing. But anyways, that was my little book talk for Unravel Me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below of what you thought about this book, who your favorite characters are. Do you agree with my opinions or not? And make sure to keep a lookout for my book talk for Ignite Me, which will be coming out at some point in the future. I'm going to be doing book talks for the rest of the series, including the novellas, but the novellas will probably be included in the book talks of the regular books, just because I don't really want to make a book talk just on a novella, because it'll be pretty short. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications. Bye!